So, Carl, I'm actually calling in as myself to point out that Die Hard's not the only Christmas movie out there. There's a Christmas TV show. It's on Disney Plus called Hawkeye. It takes place during Christmas, and he's desperately trying to get back to his family for Christmas. So, if Die Hard's a Christmas movie, Hawkeye's a Christmas show.
Carl Rodriguez is the GMologist, GM extraordinaire, the GMologist.
Well, that was Amy at the top of the show here, and she is responding to this ongoing debate about what makes a Christmas movie. I told you it would still be around in February, and she claims, well, she's probably just poking fun, but we just watched Hawkeye, which I really enjoyed on Disney Plus, and yeah, it took place during the Christmas season. Uh, Christmas was in the background. They had Christmas music, and Hawkeye was trying to get home to be at Christmas with his family. Really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that they've expanded and opened up the Marvel universe to put these kind of shows on. So yeah, it takes place during Christmas. So if we use that same criteria, I guess it's a Christmas movie, right? Hello and welcome everyone to the Geomologist Presents. So today, well, what happens when you try to throw everything at a group of players in a game? When you throw the whole dungeon at a party, or as in the case of Warhammer Fantasy, every single mutant that they could recruit out of Kemperbad, the bad guys that is. Well, the players like their odds, and as the player who plays Morastra, the Elven Knight, said, "It's 4-1, huh? I think I like our chances." So today I'm going to talk about those games where this happened. Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing, the last session we played, and then in Jackals, where the clash system just lends itself to this kind of heroic play where you can stand on the bodies of your enemies like a Frank Frazetta painting. So, but first, well, we got a couple call-ins, one from Jason Connerly and one from Colin Green that I'll respond to, and I got a couple cool boxes that I'm going to open for you and talk about them a little. So, all right, so let's get on to it. First up will be Jason.
Hey, Carl, Jason here. Sounds like Starfinder is different enough from Pathfinder that if you like Pathfinder but want to play a space game, you could switch over to Starfinder and it'd feel a little bit different. So it'd let your group that likes those kind of mechanics feel like they're playing different kinds of games. So that's pretty cool. And I'm glad you guys like it.
Hey, Jason, thanks for the call. I think you would like it too. I know you're getting more and more familiar with Pathfinder playing in Joe Richter's game, and Pathfinder 2 is a different animal, but kind of similar in feel and theme, I think. They do a few different things, and there's more tactical movement and action. But Starfinder, I think, in a way, cleans things up. I I think there was a lot of speculation that Starfinder was going to be the Pathfinder 2 mechanic. And what I didn't do last time is kind of maybe mention the differences between Pathfinder and Starfinder. So here we go in brief. There's about 15 key differences, I would say. For example, in Starfinder, there's a point buy mechanic. When you assign character ability scores, it's changed. Everything starts at 10, and then you add bonuses for your species, your ancestry, and then on top of that, you get a 10 points on a one-to-one basis. Nothing can be above 18, nothing below 8. And then you have ability advancement. So instead of getting 1 point to assign to ability score every 4 levels, like in Pathfinder, every 5 levels, the players can upgrade 4 ability scores. If it's 16 or less, that's 2 points. If it's 17 or above, that's 1 point. So you can really improve your character and see significant improvements. In addition to race and class and archetypes, there's a selection called theme, and this is like your pre Starfinder adventuring career, the core aspect of your background. So you have choices like ace pilot, bounty hunter, scholar, mercenary. It gives you flavor. It provides aids on skill checks and bonuses at other levels. And there's no traits. This replaces traits from Pathfinder. So what about hit point, stamina, resolve points, injury, and death? So Pathfinder has hit points measure how healthy you are. Loss of hit points cause physical injuries. They also have something called stamina. So I don't know if you ever played the Saga edition of Star Wars, but you had like a stamina pool and a wound pool. So stamina points measure your readiness and energy, and they're easier to get back. Resolve points is kind of grit and luck, and you save resolve points to recoup stamina and to use abilities and to keep you alive if you go below 0. When you die and you reach 0, you are unconscious and dying. You start losing resolve each round until you stabilize. If your resolve goes to 0 and something would cause you to lose enough resolve, then you're dead. So these things are important. This is the meta currency that exists. And I know I have added a house rule that you can use your resolve points. Now remember, it's a pool that can keep you alive, but if you lose it all, well, then you're going to die if you go below 0. But you can use it for rerolls too, in some house rules and in rule sets and options that are available. So armor class in Pathfinder, you have AC and touch AC, flat-footed AC. Now you just have energy armor class, kinetic armor class. So EAC is for energy damage attacks like lasers and shock weapons. KAC is for like guns and other kinetic attacks. So equipment has levels. So all Starfinder equipment has levels. So it's kind of now you're not limited by your level to what level of gear you can use. That is a misconception. But it's really a guide for the GM to be increasing character equipment as they go on. So it kind of gives you an increase in damage as you go up in level, which is kind of cool. So for example, a level 1 laser pistol does 1d4 damage, but a laser pistol Zenith at level 17 does 8d4 damage. So right there you go. So you can only have 2 worn magic items in Starfinder. So in Pathfinder, you have slots for all your head, neck, etc., etc. In Starfinder, you can only have 2 worn beyond that. This doesn't. This applies to worn items, not armor upgrades or held items or like things, consumables or weapon fusions. So it's only like 2 magic, like traditional magic items like rings, cloaks, amulets, gloves. So spells cap at 6. There's definitely less spells in gameplay. We noticed that if you get diseases, it's kind of the suck. If you don't have there's not as much healing available, which is kind of part of the sci-fi theme, right? You're not going to have like ding healing. So the action economy is a big one. In combat, you have 2 primary choices each run: a swift, a move, and a standard. Or you can do a full action. There's no really 5-foot step. You can avoid an opportunity with a guarded step, but that's your whole move action. So and this, since it's a move action, you can't do it with the full action. So if you move, you can't go do the full action. So in that regard, there's no iterative attacks like in Pathfinder. Like at higher levels, you get +6, then a -5, +1. So instead, when you do a full action, you take 4 or 5 off your attack, depending on the type of weapon. Critical hits, you don't have to confirm anymore. 20 is a crit. For feats, there's no mechanical difference for how feats work, but there is definitely less of a feat tax in Starfinder than in Pathfinder. For example, combat maneuvers, their CMB and CMD are gone. You don't have to have a feat to do combat maneuvers. You just have to roll KAC at +8. So you can without the feat in Pathfinder, you get an attack of opportunities incurred if you try to grapple or trip or disarm. Now you don't have to do that You don't have to worry about that. If there are those feats available, that make it better for you to do it, but you don't have to take them. And only three things trigger an attack of opportunity. Speaking of those, moving out of a threatened square, taking a ranged shot from a threatened square, casting a spell from a threatened square. So spellcasters, they cannot cast defensively. They have to use a guarded step to get out. And then finally, starships. You get starships at level 1, and you build your starship and improve your starship as you would your character, which I think is hella cool. So that's a very long answer to your comment, Jason, but I wanted to talk about that a bit. So thanks for the call.
Oh, Carl, it occurs to me that I never really told you what I thought about your idea of the Wars of the Roses as a setting. I meant to at the time, and I got distracted. Very lame, I know. So probably the best place for this would be for me to ask you a little bit more about your ideas. What was you thinking to do with that Wars of the Roses exactly? It is a super interesting period in British history, and I'm sure you've got a bunch of inspirational stuff to say, and thought it might be a useful topic on the GMologist Presents. But obviously that's a decision only you can make. Take care, mate. I'll catch you later.
Hey, Colin, thank you for the call. Yeah, it's probably good for me to talk about my War of the Roses idea, and maybe it can expand into a mini campaign. I think for sure the common theme that I was thinking of, right, there is a lot of dislike and outright hatred between Lancaster and York, and it would definitely it started with the nobles, but the nobles of the period or in that conflict had enough charisma that they got their followers, and not just noble followers like their bannermen and those who held land and manors, but also the man at arms, the longbowmen that were in the conflict, to really hate each other on both sides. And I don't think there was as much atrocity as in the English Civil War, but there was a lot of hard fighting. And so the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There is a common enemy that is worse than the mortal enemy that you have across the battlefield, I think is the theme I was looking for. And I was going to start the opening adventure, and I have a title called The Bone Collectors. And the backdrop is the Battle of Towton, which is reportedly England's most bloodiest battle that has ever taken place on English soil. And it is between Lancaster and York on a Palm Sunday on March 29th in 1461. And an estimated 50,000 soldiers fought for hours during a snowstorm. So it has a lot of cool visuals that I could bring to the table. And I wanted to give, like, as an introduction, like what happened to you and your soldiers or your soldiery at Towton. I ideally, when I make these and I like, this adventure is going to happen. It's going to happen on a weekend with good friends. So we'll see. Hopefully, I feel like I'm starting to get a little nervous about it, but it'll get done. The pre-gens I had in mind were 3 fighting persons from Lancaster and 3 from York, but I know not everyone wants to be a soldier, so I definitely was going to have camp follower options on both sides, either clergy or some of the women that would have traveled with the group's families actually traveled with these men, to the battle sites actually. So it could be commoner or noble. I have to figure that out. And I was gonna do it like pulp. I really thought I wanted to do pulp medieval. So that means more hit points, more ability to mitigate sanity and damage, which I think is pretty important. And I don't want to give too much away, but after the battle, there's a phase in the battle. You can Google this, so it's not really a spoiler. It happened. There's a phase in the battle where, yes, Lancaster is on the losing side of it, and the York forces jump on their horses, and the rout begins, and they chase them through these woods and meadows and across rivers. And something strange in the woods, and there might even be a hint of the strangeness during the battle itself, depending on what side you're on and where you are in the battle. Maybe you'll get a hint of that initially. So I have some ideas how this is going to go. I have like the enemies of the mythos that may or may not be there. Yeah, there's some mythos and creatures in there that the players might encounter in the wood, and maybe one side is chasing the other. Maybe they've uh, the din of the battle kind of echoes behind them. They they come upon both groups come across something strange. They can either fight each other or not. I would hope they wouldn't fight each other, but you never know how players are going to react, how much they're going to buy into the rhetoric from one side or the other, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see if the strangeness propels them to investigate it. Maybe they won't. It's a play test. I hope it goes well. I'll take notes and see how it goes at this convention, and maybe try to run it for some of the people in the geomologist as well, in the geomologist lab as well. But yeah, that's my idea. Uh, could this become a mini campaign? Sure. There's plenty of backdrop of that period. It's kind of neat to maybe figure out what the hell is going on and who are the bone collectors. Is there an overall mini arc that I could think of? Probably, but I haven't gotten past that yet. I think I've gotten to through why the bone collectors are there at the Battle of Towton and who they are and what is their ultimate purpose. So, and I don't know, could it be a conspiracy related? Maybe, but I don't want to make one side, Lancaster or York, bad or not. The Tudors did a good job of that type of propaganda, so I will refrain. But that's my idea, Colin. Thanks for the call. I hope that helps. I hope that excites my listeners. Maybe they'll want me to run it after or the second run of it after I run it February 18th. I think I'm running it like Friday morning on the 18th. So yeah, okay. Well, thanks for the call, Colin. And now we'll get to some unboxings. I got a couple packages. The first one is from Goodman Games. I didn't know they were in Santa Clara. That's pretty cool. Maybe they're 49ers fans. I hope they're not too upset by the results of the game. But here we go. I'm going to open it. I have some like packaging tape, so I'm going to use a Anchor anvil to open it, and then do the pop it out. Gotta cut all that tape, dude. Nice. So it's a inner sleeve that I gotta tear up too. Maybe I gotta cut it. These FedEx things are tough, man. All right. So nice. It's a Dungeon Crawl Classics compilation. Chaos Rising. So it's number 89, a compilation of adventures for levels 1 through 5. So I thought it was pretty neat to have a few different types of adventures. It's actually 7 DCC adventures. They're from previously hard to find, other editions, short adventures for a single session. Collectively, you could actually go, in theory, from 1 to 5. It has Elzaman and the Blood Drinking Box at level 1. And then it has, let's see what else, the Imperishable Sorceress as well. Glipper Lucario's Gambit, and that one is for level 2. Got handouts. They're cool stylistic maps. I like that. The Tower Out of Time. I think it was like a free RPG Day offering. It's level 2 also. It's got puzzles. It's got puzzles, Joe and Jason. The Jeweler That Dealt in Stardust, a level 3. The Undulating Corruption, a level 5. Oh, cool. Ooh, level 5, Undulating Corruption. The Infernal Crucible of Says Reckon the Mad, also level 5. Pretty cool. Hey, don't go through that portal. You never know where you'll end up. That's a Dungeon Crawl Classics Chaos Rising by Goodman Games. Fun stuff. I like them. Put it in on my shelf here. I might need to get another shelf. It'll go next to my, if I can get it on the shelf, it'll go next to my chain coffin. Don't ruin it. There you go. All right, the other box here is a bigger box. You can tell by my grunt. It is from Fun Again Games out of Indianapolis. I have a strong idea what this is. It's a Kickstarter replacement. It's kind of like I said, it's a thick box. It's like a 6 inches deep, and that, sort of 11 by 17 size. Definitely have to use Anvil for that. Circus Peanuts, bad. I definitely have to make sure the animals don't get it. I see a set of dice. The One Ring. So this is my One Ring second edition. It's got lots of goodies in it in this box. Pretty freaking cool. I'm excited. So it's got the screen, to the Lore Master screen, and Rivendell Compendium. It has a starter set, which I've heard is fantastic, and has a 24-page volume of condensed rules, the 52-page compendium of the Shire, and Buckland and the Old Forest. 5 exciting adventures. That's really cool. It has 5 adventures, 8 double-sided pre-gens, the Shire and Eriador, a huge full-color map, 30 cards for weapons and armor, stance cards, and more dice. So I got dice and more dice. That is very cool. And then the book itself, the rule book itself. I guess I went all in on this. The book is really nice. It's got like a hex map of, this looks like the lands, Arnor and Eriador and all that. So they're going further west. Yep. Further west than they did in the previous edition, which is cool. I mean, you now have a new set of area to play the game. It's about 220. Nope, more than 220. With the index and all that, it's about 240 pages with a poetic map and then a hex map. Very well laid out, easy on the eyes for sure. So that's pretty cool. I like that they've opened up another section of Middle Earth to play in, and it's not just a repetition of where you had the older stuff. So you could do the older stuff with the new edition. I've heard it's pretty easily compatible. You can listen to Arlen Walker on Live from Pelham's Wasteland. He talks about it often. I don't know the exact differences, and I'll research that. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm excited about it. And hopefully I can get it to the table. Some One Ring Middle Earth role-playing. I know it ain't MERPs, but hey, it's what we got. And I did the Kickstarter, and it's the books and the system has been fun, whether I played Adventures in Middle Earth, the 5e version, the One Ring, the first edition, and the second edition. I also heard they had a solo play here in here too, so I don't know if that's with this. I should look. Let me look in the. If they have solo play, I'm definitely going to take a crack at that. I don't know if they have it exactly in here or if that's going to be a separate thing. Maybe it might even be in the starter set. But yeah, cool. Pretty cool. All right. There you go. The One Ring. It's here.
Love my good.
Okay, so it wasn't 5-1 odds, but it was definitely 4-1 odds when we picked up with our Warhammer Fantasy group. So they were near the port of Kemperbad. Kemperbad was maybe around the bend. They could see the smoke from the city, and suddenly this barge approaches them, and no one kind of saw it happening except for, fortunately, Ulrich, the pilot. It's his boat, and he saw at the last second this barge was trying to ram him, so he adjusted quickly, hard right, hard to starboard, and the barge kind of scraped them and ran up against them, but suddenly grapples flew over. There's this cackle in the air, and this woman with the vanguard of a waft of perfume flew overhead and came back around the boat. So these varied mutants grapple onto the boat and jump over. There's another human in the boat, some sort of spellcaster, and they can see he's in the midst of casting a spell. It is Marastra's nemesis, the one that has plagued his dreams, this student of apothecary student of some sort they don't even remember the name of. They later learn that these folks are Red Crown cultist. Ernst Heidelmann, he was a lanky, weasel-faced fellow, and Etelka Herzen, a master wizard. But and this woman flying around while the mutants board. There are a few of them. There, I believe, were 15 mutants. I thought a 3-1 since I had sent 5 against the players before. Well, not sent. The players tracked down 5 and had an easy time of it. I thought, why not increase the odds? And I kind of rolled randomly how many Etelka and her companion could recruit in Kemperbad to do their nefarious deed to attempt to kill the party. That was their plan. They had been trailing the party for a while. The party had things that they wanted, and definitely the party had information that they wanted. And the cool thing was they beat them to where these people wanted to go, and these people then were waiting for them to come back. Though the players really don't have anything that these people were going to take. But it was a pretty engaging battle. The woman cast spells. She opened up with a chaos blast that hit the back of the ship. 2 of the players dove into the water to not take the full damage. That was Reginald and Sebastian, while Ulrich stayed fast on the top. As soon as the blast hit and there was combat, his first mate, Renata, ran up to help, but the mutants stormed on board. The player characters were effectively surprised, and they got on board and assaulted them. Half went to the rear of the ship to assault Ulrich and Renata, and half went to the front of the ship to try to take down Marastra and his menagerie. The knight has a draft horse, a riding horse, a war horse, and a Chilean pit bull named Fang. So the horse was from the blast of the arcane magic or chaos magic. The draft horse, was startled and dove into the water, swimming for shore. Two mutants dove into the water to get Reginald and Sebastian, and the rest sort of split up, like I said, 7 towards Marastra and 6 towards Ulrich and Renata. So it was a harrowing fight. The players used as much resources as they could, and I was surprised that Ulrich was able to last as long, and it was pretty cool. I believe it was definitely a very epic fight in the end, and the players prevailed. They withstood the magic that Etelka had to cast on them. The other one, the Weasley-faced wizard, kept trying to blast Marastra, but I mean, I hit once, it didn't really do much, and then the wizard tried to do another spell and failed. So I do roll on the table, and you have to roll a spell check to fail. The female wizard flying around in the air was definitely very dangerous, but didn't have But what I kept doing was, you have to channel magic enough to reach a certain threshold with which to cast spells, and I was channel like one level one round, and then 5 levels the next round, and then she could cast a spell. So the way the magic works, it's not like you can cast in a 5e type of game, but and it worked out for the players. So Marastra is amazing fighter, and Ulrich is not shabby, and surprisingly, Renata held her own too. So they held their own against these mutants, and they were able to slowly whittle them away. Reginald and Sebastian dispatched the mutants that were attacking him in the water and climbed into the boat, took care of Reginald, and then as Ulrich was suddenly getting overwhelmed because Renata finally got taken down, Reggie jumped from the barge that crashed into them to the boat to rescue his companion. It was cool. I mean, they're high enough in their careers that they can really take down the mutants at least in 1, maybe 2 hits if they get a good one. They're very skilled. I was rolling not well for the mutants, even though they had like overwhelming odds, and I was getting like a plus 40 on ganging up on them. Marastra and Ulrich especially. I was rolling in the 80s and 90s, so I was not connecting. They were gaining momentum. It was At one point, Marastra was entangled by the ropes and rigging that from a spell that the female wizard had cast, but he was dodging and kicking and fighting defensively. By the time he was able to, rip out of there. Fang and his warhorse had been able to help, and it was very cool. And then at some point, when Telka Herzen saw that the battle was lost, she tried to flee, but by that time, Sebastian was able to get out his bow. He had received this ghost bow from Brunhild, a ghost that they had put to rest, and he used the properties of the bow to just blast away at the fleeing wizard. And so like the wizard definitely would have got away like in a high fantasy game in like 5e, but she did a teleport spell, but it didn't go very far. And with the longbow, Sebastian was just rolling very well. Hit her once, twice, did a crit, and slowly she kind of when there was no more toughness for the fly spell to be sustained, the wizard kind of crashed into the drink, and they won. So I don't know what else I got to throw at them. I don't know. It's not that way. I know that the next part of the adventure is going to be very challenging. They have to assault a castle, but they know that there might be help. They've heard some rumors, which is kind of neat. So in the aftermath of the battle, as they were dumping, as they were trying to dump the bodies, and the first thing they wanted to do is recover the wizard's body. They lashed the barge alongside, went up to the wizard. A patrol boat came by, and they were able to talk to Adalia Eisen, the boat captain that was there, the river warden that was in charge of this patrol, and talked enough of a good game to say, well, these people attacked us. Look, they're mutants. They're sorcerers of chaos. We killed them for you. We are heroes. So they were able to use diplomacy to wheedle their way out of that and get a barge to boot. Not in great shape. Probably, I think what Ulrich decided was he was going to sell it and take the money to make improvements on the boat. And they're going to hang out in Kemperband to recover, because it wasn't like they weren't injured. Even Marastra, the mighty Marastra, got injured. None of the animals were hurt. They held their own. Fang killed a couple mutants as usual. So, yeah, they got some good intel from the bodies and the notes that these bad guys had. Again, they were Red Crown cultists in the hunt for them. Not really allied with the Purple Hand that has been tracking and trailing them. There was a letter they found in Bogenhafen to this woman, Etelka Herzen, and they were sort of tracking her, but they got sidetracked by the signal tower and the expedition into the Bleak Hills, which put them ahead of these bad guys. And finally they confronted them and beat them. So yeah, that's a Warhammer Fantasy. We'll pick up in Kemperband, probably do some downtime stuff so the players can advance a little bit, and then they'll head towards Castle Wittgenstein and see what the hell is happening there. They have learned that there is probably a big warp stone there, and they need to destroy it. The second game I've run recently, where the heroes are standing over the bodies of the vanquished foes, was a game of Jackals. It's a role-playing game set in the ancient Near East. It's an inspired fantasy setting of Calypsis, written by J.M. Defoe and published by Osprey Games. I like the combat system. It's very dynamic. It makes the characters feel heroic. And let's see, I'm looking here at the Roll20. And the first combat they fought a lot of ratmen, ratling type creatures. They're called Norakan. They're a type of beastmen that are the main foes, the Takan in this tale. And they fought. There are two players in this game. More or less a combat fighter named Meslar, who is played by Darren Green, Arfed, and another character named Kemosi, who is a spellcaster and a ranged specialist. He has a big longbow, that does a lot of damage. So yeah, in the first combat, they were more like, I feel like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 on 2, including a spellcasting or a shaman like ratling. And they dispatched him and defeated him with really sound tactics, protecting the spellcaster / bowman, with the Meslar, the burly 2-weapon fighting style desert nomad in the front dispatching. And what the clash points allow you to do, which I think is cool, you don't just get your attack and they get their attack. The players have these clash points that they can then contest and react to attacks on them. And if you're savvy enough to save them and use them, well, then you can always get a contested attack. And if you're skilled enough and lucky enough, you'll win that contest and do damage to your opponent even off your turn, which makes the combat really dynamic and really fast. And yes, the bad guys do get clash points. They get a pool of clash points, but it's diminishing as their numbers reduce. So once you get the upper hand, it's kind of pretty cool to see what happens. So they dispatched these ratlings, rat folk, out in this cave under this sort of sickly tree with this pale, sickly green fruit that had been distilled. They did not drink any of it. I think if another player had been there who was unable to attend, who is of more the who played the last time, the more curious type, he might have drank it. But they decided to save it and hold off on it because their main goal was to rescue a group of teenagers who had gone on a retreat downriver and were now captured and had been tracked to this ruin. They had seen previously that there was some sort of building underneath the dirt and mud that had been swallowed up by the riverbank, and they went in that direction very quickly. They kind of went over the area, found some stuff, packed up all the bad fruit and weird concoction that was created to kind of take back to town and examine it then. And then they went into this underground ruin where they fought. They tried to sneak in. It didn't quite work out. Um, and they got into another combat. Another cool thing that Mosi can do is summon like a Jinn spirit to aid them, and that was used very well to kind of control sort of the line of access, so Meslar could be fighting one combatant while the Djinn was holding off another. And they didn't just fight ratlings this time. They fought these bigger, larger type of Takan called Mavakan, who look like large ape or pig-like creatures that can dish out a lot of damage, but some luck prevailed, and the combat became a running combat. There was one point when Meslar had dispatched, so they were fighting like two of these large creatures, and one, two, three, four again of these smaller creatures. And there was one point where they heard screams and yells from the teenagers that were captured, and Meslar, who knows the language of these Takan from years of fighting, was able to kind of spoof and deceive them into calling the ratlings over who were going to do harm to the teens, so that they could join their fight. And they like he kind of mimicked the Mavakan's guttural voice and had the ratlings not concern themselves with trying to harm the teenagers, but then coming over to join the fight, which really worked. And then finally, they tried to. There was one before in the previous session. They had climbed. One of them had climbed down the chimney and saw like a young teen who was chained and had been coerced into making weapons for the Takan here. But they couldn't free him again, so they're going to have to wait until like some dead time after between combats to really get to it. They couldn't break the chain or pull it out, and you only kind of get one chance per scene. That's kind of one of the rules in this game, so you just can't keep re-rolling and re-rolling. You try, and until you can have a new scene or figure out a new way to do it, it just doesn't work. And then they had heard chanting behind this other panel or this other door, and they kind of just eventually whatever was there stopped the chanting because they heard what was going on outside. And then Meslar got like a stake and put a jam in the door so they couldn't just bust through. And eventually they started busting through, but the players were ready. Kemosi fired some arrows through the gap, injured another of these big Mavakan. Eventually the door got busted open or hacked open, and Meslar stood toe to toe with two of these large Mavakan, and one actually hit him pretty hard, did a crit, and nearly took down most of his sort of vitality. He didn't get into like so the way they do this, you have a stat called Valor and Metal. You multiply those together, or there's a multiple of the metal that you have that gives you your sort of stamina points, and you have like a wound set of 3 wound rows, and once you start filling those rows up, you start accumulating wounds, and that leads to then a lowering of your valor, what it's called, which is the equivalent of your stamina in another combat. But Meslar held his own, and he had good backup. In that room, there were not those two Mavakan, but also fought 4 or 5 more ratlings and a hyena creature, a hyena takan called an Oritakan, and that creature, I just couldn't get any other than using my clash points, my pooled clash points to counter or to get a reaction to Meslar's attacks. There was no real reason to use him. And despite the fact that the Oritakan was giving bonus wounds to the Ratmen and these 8 men, Meslar and Kemmosi prevailed. What's a cool mechanic too, and this definitely helped them prevail because 4 creatures did run away. Morale was broken after 50% of the loss. So they had killed, if 4 ran away, that means they had killed 4 or 5 previously. So 2 of these large Mavakan and 2 more of the rat folk. So they broke them. The creatures fled. They were standing on the bodies of dead rat men and these larger 8 men, and they rescued all the teens, which was really cool. It leads into the next phase of the game. We'll probably do like a downtime, like we're doing in Warhammer Fantasy. Let them do some of that, get to know that kind of mechanic, and then start with the next adventure. I think it's really cool. Very much enjoyed this game. We can have a couple more players if you're interested. It's Sunday morning at 8 a.m. so we can accommodate Darren's schedule. Yeah, it's a pretty cool game, and it lets you get that heroic feels that you really want to in a heroic high fantasy Bronze Age type game. So, all right, we're playing them this week. I'll get you some more session recaps at some point, but I just wanted to kind of comment on this. And what do you guys think? Is that too much? Do you like that kind of game? I mean, I tend to like that kind of game where you feel the heroes are competent. Um, they're both, interestingly enough, skill-based games. Both Warhammer Fantasy and Jackals use a D100 system. They So while Warhammer Fantasy has this kind of momentum that you can accumulate, not momentum, it's called advantage, but it's not like 5e advantage, disadvantage. But you start accumulating this advantage, and it gives you a bonus on your dice, and you can accumulate it up to the tens dice on your initiative score. So if you have a high initiative, like the Elf Knight does, Marastra, you can really have good advantage accumulated if you keep winning. Once you lose an opposed combat, though, you lose your advantage. It all goes to 0. So, and then Clash Point system in the Jackals this game, it just really allows you to keep fighting and to fight and hurt foes off turn. And there's definitely what I like about the table. Unless you both fail, it's a whiff. It's what I like is kind of cool. So if you get a crit, you win. If you both succeed, the one that's the higher score wins. So it kind of lets you, if you have a higher skill, have a higher threshold of a chance of success against an equal win. So you can dish out damage, which is kind of neat. And that's how you get these piles of bodies that the heroes, bloodied and battered, stand over and take a big sigh of relief as they win, and then can take a short rest to recover. So anyway, love these games. Enjoy the players, enjoy running them, and I think that'll be it. Nothing much else to talk about. I did participate in BSRCon over this past weekend, and I'll have a all totally different podcast talking about the games I played at BSRCon, which was kind of neat. So thank you all for the call-ins. Thank you for listening to my rambles and my war stories. But I think it's fun to share. It definitely is fun to share. And I definitely enjoy the feedback that you guys give. about the points I may bring up during these recaps. I hope I'm not just spouting war stories, and it's useful. You can hear about the mechanics and what's going on. You can hear about heroic deeds and character or player decisions that help their characters, or not sometimes. But with that, I think we'll just let TJ Drennan, who does the music, take us out. And I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you again for listening.